Here on the Peripetia podcast, we talk about life's turning points, the plot twists that change everything. If you're in one of those moments now, questioning your habits, your happiness, or your relationship with alcohol, check out Ditch the Drink. It's life coaching with a sober, curious twist because we're all recovering from something, whether that's grief, burnout, people-pleasing, perfectionism, you name it. Start your next chapter with a free guide and masterclass at ditchthedrink.com. Your turning point could start today. This episode is brought to you by Kajabi, the all-in-one platform that helps creators like you turn your knowledge into income. Whether you're a coach, course creator, or content pro, Kajabi gives you everything you need to build, market, and sell your offers all in one place. No duct taping together websites, email systems, landing pages, or payment processors. Kajabi handles it all, so you can focus on what you do best, teaching, creating, and connecting. I use Kajabi myself, and I can tell you it's a game changer. You can launch a digital product, build a membership, or host an entire online course without needing to be a tech genius. Want to give it a try? Head to my link for a free 30-day trial and see how simple building your dreams can be. Kajabi, where creators become entrepreneurs.
Hey, babe, and welcome to the Peripetia podcast, a talk show for women. This is the place to talk about how we're ditching our bad habits, long-held patterns, and limiting beliefs. The time is now to stop outsourcing and start insourcing our happiness and bliss. Am I right? I'm Heather Lowe, your empowering life coach, ready to guide you on this incredible journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and freedom. If you're feeling stuck in the cycle and wondering what life could look like if you liberated yourself, well, I've got something just for you. I created a free guide to help you take those first empowering steps towards a healthier and more fulfilling life, the one that you desire. This guide is packed with practical tools, mindset shifts, journal prompts that dig deep, and real-life insights to support you in making changes that truly stick. So if you're ready to explore what's possible, head over to ditchthedrink.com and grab your free guide today. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. And if you want a group of babes to journey with, I've got you there too. We're staying connected through the Ditch the Drink Insider app with private forums, weekly group calls, masterclasses, live workshops, book clubs, in real life events, and more. And the best part is you can join for free with a 7-day trial. I'd love to continue the conversation on the inside. Now, let's dive into today's episode and get inspired to create the life you deserve, like so many other babes are doing right now. Here we go.
Welcome, Stacy Figg, to the Peripetia podcast. I am so grateful to have you here. I know you've got a big story to share, and you've never shared it publicly before. So I'm really grateful to be the one to be able to have this conversation with you. Will you start with a little background about who you are and where you're from, and what you have is actually a before and an after? Right. So you had something like major happen in your life. Tell us who you were before it happened, and then tell us what happened.
So my name is Stacy Figg. I'm a native of Detroit, but after college, my career brought me to Grand Rapids, Michigan. And this is where I met my husband, and we built a family of 4 here. I have a daughter who is now 15 and a son who is 12. I am a postpartum doula in my community and work for a nonprofit organization. So we have a dog, Roxy, who is a new member of the family. So that's exciting.
Typical
so really
Midwest, regular, normal family, literally like 2.5 kids, a dog, a white picket fence. I know Grand Rapids is absolutely adorable. So everything is picture perfect. Am I right?
So you would think, right?
Yeah. Sounds dreamy so far.
So I've been in Grand Rapids since 2000 when I started my job here, and things, kind of materialized. Got married in 2007, had our first baby in 2010. and, living happily married since. And then, after the pandemic, things were kind of crazy. My husband actually had been a bank executive at a privately held bank, small business bank for 30 years. And one day came home and told me that he had left the bank, and was pretty unsettling to me, as that had not been in our plan. And things just didn't sit well with me at that time. I felt like something just wasn't right. But we kind of went on our way, and I was working at the time as a postpartum doula and looking into some other work. And so he kind of took a break and then started to look into some other work. And that, I would say, was in 2021, maybe. So things just went on. I started some work with a nonprofit. And then in late 2022, we had just been through an awful snowstorm. I had quite a day, and John and the kids were out skiing. And I had received a text from a friend that said, praying for you, hope you're doing okay. And I thought that was kind of peculiar, as I didn't really understand what she was talking about. So I had texted some other friends and who had known her and just said, have you heard anything? Like, what's going on? I don't understand.
There is a snowstorm, but I don't need her prayers because of it.
Yeah. What's happening?
Yeah.
So I just happened to pull up our local newsreel, and that's when I found out that my husband was being charged with embezzlement by the federal government. And unbeknownst to me, obviously. And so that's what her text message was alluding to.
What was going through your mind when you pulled that up and saw? Did you see your husband's face? Was there a picture?
No, there was not a picture. It was just a picture of the federal building downtown.
You saw his name and the charges?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a shock and surprise to you?
I mean, absolutely. This was not the man that I knew. Just a pit in my stomach. And part of me was like, I told you so, because I just knew when he told me he left the bank, it was just something just told me, my intuition, my gut told me that his career there wouldn't end that way. We would have had a conversation about it. You just don't end a 30-year career. I thought he would have retired from there. And unfortunately, that night he was skiing with the kids. So I was alone at home. And so the first thing I did was call my sister. I just was in a quandary. I was upset. I saw my whole world shatter. So then when they got home later on, it was very hard to talk. The kids were around.
You hadn't told him that you knew this news? That you found this out until you saw
I had texted him, but at the ski hill, the technology isn't great. So I couldn't call him. Calls don't go through. Text messages don't necessarily go through. So he had seen the news. I at least knew that when he was there, he had seen the news. He knew that it was out. So he knew that there was an investigation going on. My mental health at the time wasn't great. Coming out of COVID, I was going through some things. So that was his reasoning for not sharing it with me. They didn't know, him and his attorney didn't know where things were going to go. So apparently, because it was year end, the federal government had to file some paperwork. The newswire picked it up and published it online. I don't believe came across the TV wire, but it did come across online. So Facebook and their local app, things like that. So anybody that was looking at that saw it.
Word was getting out. And so in this moment, your world completely flipped upside down. You knew there was a before and after. My life will never look the same. This is major. This is traumatic. There's no going back. Everything has changed. But also it was almost like an answer to a mystery solved, because you never really trusted that ending his job at the bank. It never felt right to you.
No.
And so
I was never settled.
Yeah.
I never got really the answers that I was looking for. And even his body language, the way things were being handled with customers. I mean, he had long-term bank customers that if things are ended in an amicable way, you still continue some of those relationships. So I just was unsettled in that. So yeah, finally that was answered. There had been some knocks at the door during that year and a half that I was kind of questioned, like, who are they and why are they here? But I trusted John. I trusted his judgment. I trusted, he had an explanation for it. And so I don't know a lot about the banking world and finance and all of that. So I trusted what he was telling me.
Yeah.
And, if he said he had written a couple of bad loans, and so they were there to ask him questions about it. And so, okay, that sounds okay. It's like something that they would do to get, the books tied up, whatever the case may be. So, but I have to say that the minute I heard the news, I always imagined John behind bars or in an orange jumpsuit. I always had incarceration at the top of mind.
Your intuition is strong. You knew it all along. The initial news came out, said he was being charged with these things, but not yet guilty of these things.
With embezzlement. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you already knew he was guilty and he was going to be behind bars. You saw, you had a vision. You saw it in your mind. The man that you know, love, and trust was going to be in an orange suit.
Yeah. So after many, many discussions, February came around and it was time for him to be arraigned. So mid-February, we had to go to the federal courthouse. And so what happened was the bank decided that they weren't going to charge him criminally. But once they filed with their insurance or whatever they have to do, make a claim, then the federal government picked that up and decided to charge him federally for the embezzlement. So he's being charged by the federal government for the embezzlement. So we go to the federal courthouse, and it was terrifying to see your loved one sit in a courtroom like that as a defendant, hearing the charges read. But at that time, they hadn't fully known what the total amount of money was. So he pled not guilty that day. So then what we had to do, and that day I decided to go alone. So there was no one there with me. I sat there alone, and he had to be fingerprinted and something else after the arraignment. And I literally walked out of the courtroom, and there was a line of prisoners in orange jumpsuits standing in the hallway waiting to go into their courtroom. And it just, like, that visual will never leave my mind. So I had to wait there for him to be fingerprinted. So then come March, he had to go and be arraigned again, because then they had the correct numbers, the correct allotment of money, right? So then he had to go back for an arraignment and plead guilty. Well, I thought, I'm not going to go back again. That was so traumatizing. So he went, pled out. Well, then that day, the news picked it up. They didn't in February for some reason, but this time in March they did. And it was all over the news, all over the local news. So it didn't hit that much in December. And I think a lot of people didn't find out about it because everybody was traveling for the holidays. But March, it blew up. So everyone in the community found out. So I literally felt like every time I left my house, I was wearing a billboard, whether I was at the grocery store, the local mall, at school. I mean, anywhere and everywhere, I felt like I was wearing a billboard that my husband was a felon.
Mm-hmm. What was it like from December till March when between you and your husband, you had this information, you knew it was coming. There was a lot of unknowns, but there was some knowns, but it wasn't quite public yet. And it was just you and him.
And our kids didn't know. So our kids don't know.
Tell us about
that. So
I
literally some days would drive my kids to school and come back and lay on the floor and sob.
Because you weren't telling them. You were holding this so much. You were alone when you heard about it. You were alone in that courtroom. This is a big load to carry. And what was your relationship with John?
It depended on the day.
Yeah, it was like there's got to be some anger there.
We were both in therapy. He knew the days that not to talk to me. He knew the days that I needed him. He knew the days that I needed an apology over and over again. But I knew deep down this was not the man that I knew. The embezzlement started in 2014, and this was 2023. And what happened was we were short on bills, and he found a way to do it, take a little bit of money to help us. And it turned into sort of an addiction where, like, I'm going to skim a little off the top, I'll pay it back. Well, we all know how that goes. You don't end up paying it back, and then it builds and builds and builds. And I remember reading very early on a really good article by an FBI investigator that works on embezzlement cases. And they said, nobody sets out an embezzlement and writes themselves a $2.5 million check. It starts with little amount and it builds and builds and builds, just like in a gambling addiction.
Yeah, it's almost like adrenaline.
Nobody sets out to, gamble away millions of dollars. It starts with $1 bet or a $2 bet, and then it builds. And it's the same type of thing. John had no idea that when they came out with the total amount, he thought it was maybe half of that. He had no idea the amount because they're not keeping a spreadsheet of what they've taken. Mm-hmm. So he did pay the bank back the amount of money that he took, but he used our 401k to pay that back without me knowing. But that's the deal the bank made him, that if you turn that over, we won't press charges. Little did he know that when they filed the claim with the insurance, that he would be federally prosecuted. So after March, we met with his attorney again to find out when his sentencing would be. And there's federal guidelines. They have a graph depending on how many, the number of victims you have during your crime, whether or not you have a criminal history. There's just a grid that they follow. And depending on how many points you have, that's the amount of years that you're going to serve. And that's really when it came to light that he was going to end up serving time in a federal facility. And I was just sick about it. You never imagine that you're going to know someone, let alone a loved one, who's going to be incarcerated, especially your husband. Our family was so lucky to have such an amazing amount of support from not only our community, the school community, our kids, friends, and family, once the kids found out, but, the adults. So fast forward to mid-July, was his sentencing date. We went to Kalamazoo, Michigan, to the federal court. And there we went to the court proceeding, and, family and friends were there to support him. And he was sentenced to what I believe was 42 months in a federal facility. And again, it was very hard to sit in that courtroom, hear those allegations read about a man that has worked so hard his entire life, who came from, a very poor community. He's one of 10 kids, has given so much, and now standing there. The judge was granted him stay through September, so he could be home for our son's 12th or 11th birthday, I guess. So then we went home and had to overcome our next hurdle, and that was to tell the kids. And there's no federal level 1 prison in Michigan. So we found out that he would be in a prison in West Virginia, which was good and bad because it's a federal prison camp, which it's barrier free. There's a lot of freedom. However, it was 7 hours away from Grand Rapids. So seeing him was a barrier. But we told the kids the end of July, which was one of the hardest days of my life. Rowan, our youngest, essentially went into shock. Him and John are very close. I think he was only 10 at the time. Riley, who's a little bit older, was able to handle it a little bit more. She just wanted to know if he was going to be safe and if he was going to come back. And then on September 19th, I drove him to West Virginia and dropped him off at the federal facility. So within a 9-month period from hearing on the news watching him be arraigned, plead out, be sentenced, tell our kids, and then dropped him off at a federal facility, all within less than a year's time. It was extremely, extremely hard. And my whole entire world has been turned upside down from that standpoint.
Mhm. Wow, Stacey, that's so much. And then he's gone and you have the burden of single parenting and the financial burden.
Yeah. Carrying everything. And like I said, we were so lucky to have so much support around us. But being the single mom, I work 40 hours a week. So the first year my kids were at the same school, but then Riley was a freshman. So then I had them at 2 different schools. But between sports, working, trying to manage my emotions, their emotions, support them mentally, emotionally, was extremely hard that first at least 4 to 6 months. It was like drinking from a fire hose. I couldn't do it. We were all in therapy. We had our first visit. I think that he went September. I think it was November. We went for our first visit, which wonderful to see him. But every time we left, it was like we were re-traumatized. And the mental load of doing it all. I mean, I was up at 6 every morning and wasn't going to bed till 11 o'clock. And I was just like, some days after dropping them off school, I would just like throw myself on my bed and sob because there wasn't enough of me and I was exhausted. John and I don't have family here. Granted, our family was doing all they could to support us in any way possible, financially, emotionally. But there's just only so much they can do. Like I had to, and I think my kids wanted me even more to be in all the places because they were missing their dad so much. But there were so many people that stepped up for us, so many people. And I'm so thankful for that. It helped so much with the shame and the judgment that I was feeling in those times, in those days. Like I said, when I left the house, I always felt like, regardless of where I was, that I was being judged or shamed for what went on. And fortunately, those that are close with us, the families, the friends, know John's true character and know that this was an honest mistake that he regrets and will for the rest of his life. And unfortunately, it's really damaged a lot of those around him, especially me. I've lost so much of myself. There's been friends lost. There's been things that I enjoy that I don't get to do anymore. But like I said, I know that this was an honest mistake, and leaving him or being angry with him would only do more harm. And don't get me wrong, I find myself sometimes still angry, but we've done so much repair. There were so many discussions while he was incarcerated that him and I sat for hours at a time talking about the ins and outs of why and what and how. And this wasn't just about taking money. It's deep. It goes deeper than that. And I told him early on that, he needed to start peeling back the onion and figure that out, because if he didn't figure that out, there wasn't going to be a him and I. And luckily he was able to get into a really specialized program at the prison he was in. And it's a 9-month program where there's a lot of peer support. And so I think it really did so much for him in that regard. They call it RDAP, and it's only available at certain prisons, but he was able to do that. And then once he was released, they continue to have facilitate the program outside of the prison at different facilities in the community. So just a really great program that he was really able to dig deeper down into, the whys as far as the crime goes. So just a lot of repair.
For him, it's been a healing journey for him, for you, but for him too, being caught almost maybe is a relief in some way that the cycle will stop.
It's interesting because prior to him being caught, there was a lot of anger that was seeping through, and for no reason, no apparent reason. And I couldn't pinpoint it. And now that's no longer there. And even other people have comments like, before the embezzlement came out, but after him leaving the bank, like, oh, he just seems like a different person. Just seems
Secret.
a lot more relaxed.
Yeah, it was a lot to hold a secret.
Yeah.
Interesting. He thought
Just that pressure.
Yeah, it started as a way to protect the family financially, be the provider and everything he thought he was supposed to be, or a banker is supposed to be, right? And a little bit here, I'll pay you back. A little bit more, I'll pay it back. And then, like I said, almost starts to feel like a rush. Like I'm getting more and I'm getting more, and it's working. And my wife is happy. The kids are happy. I'm signed up for all the sports programs. I got the house, the dog, things are fine. Right?
Until they're not. Yeah.
And it sounds like from forever, you recognized this is a good person who I love, who you married, who you chose to spend your life with, who's has some behavior that I don't love. Right. But you didn't doubt him and his character. It was his behavior that you were not happy with.
Right. Such a big heart from the beginning. Such a big heart. So caring. Has always been a caretaker, like for his parents, his siblings, just always there. But just like the behavior, as time went on, his behaviors, the anger, the aggression, short fuse, the drinking, all was like ramping up. And like I said, I couldn't pinpoint it.
You guys, I'm so excited. My favorite makeup brand asked me to be an ambassador for them. Jones Road Beauty. You guys, if you feel like a clown in makeup, like I do, this is the makeup for you. It feels so moisturizing and hydrating that when I went to the store, they actually told me I was using so much. I want to take a bath in this, okay? Jones Road Beauty is the clean, high-performance makeup line from Bobbi Brown, made to enhance your natural beauty, not hide it. From Miracle Balm to their viral foundation, every product is multi-purpose and effortless. It takes me about 5 minutes in the morning, and I feel good all day. And right now, if you use my link, when you spend $85, you're going to get a free mascara. Head to the link below. Start fresh, feel good, glow differently. Thanks, Jones Road Beauty. You know I love magazines. From my vision board to my junk journaling, getting that glossy happy mail in the mailbox makes me so happy, you guys. What happens after the moment? That changes everything. The grief, the healing, the reinvention. After Magazine is where those next chapters unfold. It delivers soulful essays, powerful interviews, and vibrant visuals that explore life after the transformational moments and after alcohol. And now, we've introduced an Ask a Coach column with real questions and grounded guidance from an expert coach, me, Heather Lowe of Ditch the Drink, because sometimes the best next step is simply knowing what to ask. For honest answers, thoughtful advice, and a path forward, explore After at aftermagazine.com with my link below. Subscribe for Digitalese to get the stunning quarterly print issue, because life doesn't end with the turning point. It evolves, and After helps you live what comes next.
And then once he left the bank, it all kind of started to like even out. And I was like, I knew his job was like stressful, but not that stressful. And then when this all came out, it was like, okay, now all the puzzle pieces are coming together. But like I said, from the start, when he left the bank, I'm like, he didn't just leave the bank on his own. I knew there was something there because of how things went down. So
perhaps it was self-protection to not dig deeper in that yourself. Right. And you, hindsight, looking back, you can see things differently. But when you're in it, in the moment, it's survival, perhaps. And
absolutely.
To just be like, he's very off. I know this isn't the answer. I'm not going to ask any more questions, and I got to get to work.
Exactly. I got other things to tend to. Like you can take care of
and the kids are hungry. So
moving right along.
Easy to distract yourself, for sure.
Yes,
Plenty of distraction.
Exactly.
Wow. I'm sure in some ways you did, but the way you tell the story, it doesn't sound like you considered leaving him. Like, even when you say like you saw him behind bars, it's almost like you saw your husband in an orange jumpsuit, but you're not saying I saw my ex-husband in an orange jumpsuit.
No, you're right. It's not that I didn't think about that, but when I did, the moment was very fleeting. I just, that's such an interesting question because that wasn't an option for me. There's so much hurt to see my kids without their dad, to feel his absence. John has always been such a presence in our home. He could always come and go. His work, it was very flexible. He could take the kids to school. He could pick them up. He was always very present at home. And so his absence was like, there's like a hole in our hearts when he was gone. And I knew that's how it would be. And I didn't want that for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
We had a great relationship. It wasn't, he was a banker. I thought like he had the money taken care of. He was the spender. I just always assumed like things were taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
Which now roles are reversed. It was kind of before like ignorance was bliss. Well, I found out the hard way that that's not how things always work. I have so many friends that are like, oh my gosh, he's got the spreadsheet out again. It's making me crazy. And I'm like, fuck, I wish I would have had that. I wish.
Well, that's what I was going to say with some of the judgment, let's say, and the changing relationships. Didn't people assume you were in on it? That you wanted it or demanded it or asked for it? Or
I was not the spender in the relationship. I'd be like, let's go get like the $10 Gap t-shirt. And he's over at like some other place buying like the $99 t-shirt. I'm like, but I was always like, he grew up like poor. So he likes nice things. He works hard. Okay, fine. Mm-hmm. I'm like the sale, like find me a sale. I don't buy anything that's not on sale. Like find me a bargain. Like I like nice things, but I don't like
that's your rush. You're like me. Yeah. I'm like, like my husband's always like this rubbish, and I'm like, I love it. I know. Right? Yes. I found it on the curb.
I'm going to repaint it. Exactly. I'm going to sand it and make it pretty. It's going to shine like a diamond. Yeah.
That's right.
So yeah, so I was always like, he's the spender, not me. And if I'm going to buy something really nice, I'm going to use my own money. Mm-hmm. So that's how I just always was. So yeah, I didn't worry. I didn't like.
So you had no idea. You were not part of it. Friendships were lost. Tell me about that reputation in town. You had people that were very supportive and then perhaps people that weren't. Can you tell me what support looked like and kind of what came from the maybe fade away or cut off? Really?
Support, like meal trains after John left, like every Wednesday, somebody brought a meal, help with rides from school to sporting events, people taking the kids so that I could get a break. The school, my kids both go to tuition-based schools, so they've helped there, help with bills, help with anything financial. And then, relationships, like just people showing up to like in the moment because it's in vogue, if you will, and then just kind of disappearing because they want to know the nitty gritty and then kind of just fading out because
it's gossip for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they want to know the gossip. Mm-hmm. That has really been really hurtful and hard to swallow. Or because you don't have anything to give anymore in return, people just kind of fading out. Some people think we owe them an explanation for why it happened, therefore, or just that they're better than this, so they don't want to be associated, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But no one is perfect, and we all make mistakes, and one mistake doesn't outweigh the other mistakes. Also, as far as anger goes, I chose to let the justice system do the work. And that's how John that's the punishment that John had to take. So that's sort of how I look at, like, he doesn't need my anger to punish him more. I let the justice system do that work. And that's how he had to repay society. He'll say, I have to earn my way back, or I have to repay society. And, even his probation officer was like, you've already done that. You've repaid the bank. You've paid your dues by being incarcerated. Like, you've already repaid society. Now you have to reintegrate yourself. And he's working already. He already has a job and has been since April. So that's where, like, the anger part of me tries to stay at bay, and that he's already been punished. Like, even though he was in a level 1 prison, it's not a cakewalk, like, by far. I mean,
He was
wasn't
7 hours with his family, so nobody chooses that, right?
No.
That in itself is lower barriers or not. It's
not a cakewalk. People are not nice there. He's working like 3 to 4 hours a day doing something that you or I would never want to do for 12 cents an hour. So, we had 15-minute phone calls if we were lucky each day, monitored. He had to pay for email, but so yeah, not a fun way to live. So.
Wow, what an experience. So this is a story of incarceration, but it's also a love story to me. One, the way your community showed up for you is a love story of your time of need, and you, who's been a helper, has accepted help and support, and that's totally beautiful. And for you and your husband, what you say, that he has been punished and it's not my job to punish him. And you have a story of forgiveness in any long-term relationship, especially marriage. We know I'm going on my 20th anniversary, is just a story of forgiveness over and over again for both of us, doing such stupid things and such hurtful things and making such wrong choices and not being there for each other in the right ways all the time. And we all have those things in our head, right? Our tally of the things our spouse has done wrong, the things that we have done wrong. And we just have to have this audacious forgiveness to keep going. Yeah, your story is, I mean, you've loved him and almost understood him from the beginning of why he would do it, from where he came from and from where he was at, and the kind of person is how this would have happened, how he would have done, and that he is worthy of forgiveness. And you're not going to punish him. But this did a lot to you to carry alone. So you're working on repairing with him, but in the meantime, you're carrying that load.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah. How has your identity changed as a wife, a woman, a friend, as a mother?
For a long time, I felt like I was the prisoner's wife, because I go to school functions and I'd be one of the only ones, without a husband, or I go to wherever, especially the school community, because it's smaller, be at tailgates or this or that. And it's just like, here I am again. I'm the lone soldier, the prisoner's wife. But that's come full circle. And for a while, John, once he got home, he was on parole. So he was on home confinement. He couldn't come out with me. So it still felt the same, even though he was home. And home confinement, a lot of people don't realize it's a lot more strict than you realize. Like, you can't step your foot out the door unless it's scheduled. So now he just got off recently. So now we can be out and about together. So it feels like there's a lot more normalcy now than there has been in 2 years. So now I don't feel as labeled like I used to be. But, at some point I had to stop caring, quite honestly, because
I was going to say the other option is move to a different community.
No, I just didn't
consider that.
Put my armor on every day, and I will go to battle for my family through and through, whether that's for my kids or for him, because until you stepped a day in my shoes or you sit down to really get to know us, then you have no place to talk or to judge. So
that has beefed up for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So. And what is reentry like for him and you?
It actually hasn't been that bad. Like family wise, we did a really, really fantastic job. I feel like as a family, really staying in touch, even though those calls are short and they're hard to get like the kids, involved, but we sent cards and pictures and really just tried to stay as in touch. John and I would email quite a bit, as far as like what the kids were doing, what we were doing. So that has gone really, really well. It was the one thing that was hard is I feel like because when you're on parole, you're so scheduled and you're worried about what you're doing when. And so I felt like my worries were different than his worries, but now we're kind of on the same page with what's going on in the household and whatnot. So, but reentry has been fine.
You're just happy to have him back.
Yeah.
And the kids are too.
And he was since it was a barrier-free facility, he like was in a bunk area, not a cell. Mm-hmm. So he could wander. They had 400 acres to be on. So he wasn't confined in a way like a lot of prisoners are. So he had a lot of room to roam and whatnot.
What was that first visit like with the kids and you? I mean, you had
gosh,
but
it was really weird and hard. So they meet like in almost like a big gymnasium area, and there's vending machines, and you sit kind of in a pod, not area, but like a pod of chairs. Mm-hmm. The prisoner sits always in the same spot within the pod, and then you sit around him. They have to stay seated for the most part unless they go to the restroom. They wear a khaki uniform, like military uniform. So he was never in orange. Never seen him handcuffed. And so it's really just like, it's mostly just very long for the kids to sit. It's from 8:30 to 3. So it's just a really long.
And that's your visit day, and you sit in that pod for that day?
Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, you can visit. It's only on the weekends. Yeah. So we would go and do it for 2 days because 7 hours.
Going to make the most of it. Mm-hmm. But then, so the like anticipation so high, yay, we get to see dad. And then this is like, he's like our, person we never get to see. So he's a celebrity. This is so exciting. And then also like, this is so boring.
I know. Yeah, I know. Because they're like, they don't have their phones.
What do we talk about for that long at that age? Just sitting
but we did. You can play games like we would play chess and checkers and Uno, and they have all kinds of games, and you can color, and there's vending machines. So
you're just trying to enjoy your time together in this little
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's how it was actually like way more comfortable than it could have been. Very clean. And so we all just like pig out on junk food essentially and visit, and then go and wander around Morgantown, West Virginia for the night, go see a movie or something. But it was refreshing to see that there were other families like us when we were there. There were big kids, little kids, all kinds of families that were just like us. And thank goodness John was able to form some really life-changing relationships, friendships while he was there, others that had committed white-collar crimes, and people that he has continued to stay friends with now that he's been released and they've been released. Some good people that were mentors to him when he came in, and, people that really helped him get through his time there. Mm-hmm. So it's really shocking to know that 1 in 4 families do deal with incarceration of a loved one. And that was a really shocking statistic to me when we were going through this. So
yeah, I was going to say community was so important for you and for him. Mm-hmm. So the power of community. And I wanted to ask you, for anyone who's listening right now, feeling like they're in the shadow of their partner's actions, let's say, what do you want them to hear from you?
Just try to really focus on that person's true character and know that sometimes we make mistakes, and to really try to work on repairing and mending your relationship with them versus focusing on the mistake itself. Sitting in anger doesn't doesn't help with forward progression. And so sitting in that shame and judgment while being angry isn't going to help you in that stage. And so I would really just suggest that, you both get maybe some individual help and then also some couples help with that. Because it does really help. Yeah. Just compassion and empathy. And, we all find ourselves in places we don't want to be in. And so I think, although it's had such an impact on me, I just find strength and have hope that, we've been through the worst of it. And now it's time for us to move forward. So, yeah.
So much healing has already happened, it seems.
Yeah.
And honestly, it sounds like you're better than before. That some of us had to come out to address the issues that were being avoided and ignored, again, because of protection. And
and I do, I have said to some people around me, like, I love him more now than I did before, because I see him in a different lens than I did before. And he's really, like I asked him to do before, like, peeled that onion back. And I really see more of his true character now than I did before, because he's not harboring what he was for the last however many years.
And you've overcome this together.
Yeah. So
when we started this call, you admittedly were nervous, right? Because you hadn't talked about it. And I said, why? And I wanted to give you an out. Like, we don't have to do this. You don't have to have this call. You could be anonymous. We don't have to say your name. Like, right. How can we make this safe for you? And, or do you want to just call the whole thing off? Right. We don't.
Right.
So I said, why do it? And you said some really powerful things about shame and storytelling. Will you answer that question for us now? Why tell your story?
Well, I think storytelling is so powerful. In other work that I do, we say, about with mental health, like, storytelling saves lives. And I think storytelling is so therapeutic. And when you share your secrets, it really breaks down that barrier of shame and stigma. And so I just really wanted to share this story for other people that are going through something like this, or encountering something scary or shameful in their life, because you can pull from the strength of my story, hopefully, and just know that these feelings aren't going to last forever. And by sharing your secrets, it just reduces the amount of shame that you may feel. So don't be afraid to share with somebody who you can confide in.
Thank you so much. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
That is the human story of going from dark to light and talking about it and going back and helping somebody that's going through it. And we've all made mistakes, for sure. And we're able to overcome them. We don't have to live there in our mistake, and we don't have to judge ourselves or keep punishing ourselves, as you said, right?
And that's what's so important, is to, like, move forward. And, so many people will say, I'd be so mad at him. I want a divorce, but it's like, so much easier said than done. And, I never envisioned a life without John, and I still don't. And are there times? Yeah. But in the grand scheme of things, like, I want to do this together. I want to rebuild our life together. And did I ever imagine my life this way? No, but we're going to fix it. And will I ever forget? No, but I'm going to forgive, and I'm going to move forward, and we're going to make it better. And so I think that's just really important. So
it's beautiful. It sounds like a love story to me. Thank you, Stacy, for sharing with us. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful story, and you shared it so bravely and so beautiful, and I appreciate you.
Thank you, Heather.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Peripatia Podcast, a talk show for women. Don't forget to download my free ebook, The 12 Truths to Change Your Life. Do it for the plot. We'll see you in the next episode. Lots of love.